Hello, and welcome to the Kink Perspective. My name's Chris. I'm a psychotherapist and consultant. On today's show, I'm going to dive into yet another question that somebody from the audience kind of reached out and asked me about, at least asked me my insights on how to navigate it. Today, I want to talk about the dynamic facet of relationships that are often overlooked and how you navigate these, because there are a lot of people that we do meet that are in other locations around the world, and we are inclined to be drawn towards them. We are interested in what they have to say. They may be different from us or have a different perspective than us, and we really want to get to know them, and then something develops. Over time, we develop long distance interests, possibly even long distance dynamics, and find ourselves into a long-distance relationship. Now, we all understand that the essence of kink and BDSM is synonymous here with physical presence and that intimate connection, but the reality of modern life, though, sometimes necessitates exploring these dynamics across distances. Now, whether separated by continents or time zones, long-distance kink relationships pose both unique challenges and remarkable opportunities for growth and relationship intimacy here. Now, if we navigate this terrain of long-distance relationship kinks, we do have to understand there is going to be a very delicate balance of communication, creativity, and trust. Today, I'm going to go into how people can explore these relationships, establish and maintain these emotional connections, even despite physical separation. I'm going to talk about negotiating boundaries, consent remotely, to leveraging technology for virtual play and scenes. I also want to go over some of the tools and strategy that can help bridge the gap between fantasy and reality. Now, I also want to cover some of the emotional nuances here, practice considerations, and really kind of define what it means to be a part of something like this, the real commitment that we're going to be going into when we want to enter something like this. I'm hoping here to give you a little bit more insight, some guidance, and a deeper understanding of how individuals can thrive in a complex and possibly quite rewarding dynamic. We do have to understand, though, setting the bar to going long distance is going to require, comparably so to a regular in-person dynamic, I'm going to argue you'll need a lot more effort. And effort's one of these things that I consistently talk about on the show, in my writings on FetLife, or even other various forms of social media, or when I'm working with my clients. Without effort, we don't do a lot of things. So let's go ahead and kind of dive into this here and talk about establishing the connection in a long-distance relationship. Now, first, what really is a long-distance kink relationship? These are a delicate partnership here where emotional and sexual intimacy evolve across a vast physical separation. Even if you're separated, I'm going to definitely say, without some places in Europe and the States, but let's just be more realistic. Let's say we're at least a state apart, or at least a country apart, right? If you're in New York and you met somebody in California, or you're in the UK and you potentially meet somebody, I don't know, let's say Austria, right? Wherever these existential limits come in, you're now getting into the possibility of starting a relationship with somebody that's at a distance. Now, it does pose its advantages and disadvantages, but unlike conventional relationships here, this really is going to thrive on exploring desires, boundaries, erotic fantasies, trust through digital means. And it really can foster a deep emotional connection despite this geographical distance. Now, how do we build and sustain something like this? You have to create a robust emotional connection here, and this begins with genuine communication. Both of you, or the partners that are going to be involved, need to engage in really open dialogues about their fears, their desires, daily life, patterns, and they need to cultivate an understanding and create intimacy. This process isn't just about exchanging messages, but sharing vulnerabilities and creating an environment for emotional exploration. Now, we talk about regular communication all the time. I tell people, I talk to couples about it, or people in relationships, about how important communication is. But when you enter a long distance kink relationship, communication is all you're going to have. And it's going to be vital for maintaining that closeness that a long distance relationship is going to need to survive. So we're going to be talking about check-ins and messaging and all of the like. It really does serve as the lifeline that bridges that physical gap, and it provides reassurance and emotional support. Video calls are particularly significant, offering the visual cues that deepen connection by allowing partners to see each other and look at their expressions and their reactions, which really is crucial here for the emotional bonding. Messaging apps ensure continuous interaction. They facilitate real-time sharing of thoughts, fantasies, intimate moments, tasks complete, maybe educational purposes. These tools here enable partners to remain actively present in each other's lives, reinforcing their emotional connection over time. Now, technology does have to play here a pivotal role in fostering intimacy across distances. Video calls here, for example, they don't only facilitate the face-to-face interaction, but it also enhances the nonverbal communication, which is essential for understanding emotions and intentions. Messaging apps provide the platform for ongoing conversations where partners can engage in spontaneous exchanges. They can share intimate details of their day-to-day lives, or maybe how work's going, or what they're having for dinner, or if they're tired, whatever the case may be. But even shared online spaces such as virtual environments or community forums like FetLife or Fetish.com, they allow partners to co-create an experience and exchange media and explore their kinks together. And they get to build a shared sense of intimacy and connection despite the physical separation. In essence here, establishing this connection in a long-distance kink relationship involves embracing a lot of vulnerability. And you have to maintain regular and meaningful communication and leverage that digital tools at your disposal to bridge the emotional and physical gaps that you're going to experience. Now, these practices not only deepen the bond between two people, but they can really start to enrich your exploration of your erotic intimacy and make your interactions a bit more meaningful. Now, for some people, it does bode a little bit easier. They've met somebody on the other side of the world, but travel isn't possible. But we want to stay connected. And it is possible. We are in a technologically advanced world now. Things like Skype, Zoom, WhatsApp, Telegram, emails, all of these things provide you the utility to make something like this happen. It does also give you the other side that if the relationship doesn't work out, or maybe disagreement happens, and you're going to face somebody who may not return to that virtual environment. So there are the gambles that go along with it. But I think here the cornerstone, and again, we come back to these things a lot in any style of relationship, is how are we going to navigate communication and consent in a long-distance relationship? Now, this will have to be clear and continuous communication, because that's going to be the foundation for understanding emotional intimacy and trust building. It's not just about exchanging a message here. It's about creating a space where partners can openly discuss their desires, their fantasies, their concerns without any hesitation or judgment. Now, this ongoing dialogue maintains trust, and it ensures that both partners feel heard and respected, even across distances. Because if I can't tell you how I'm feeling, if I'm having a bad day or anything else, or I'm too fearful to express that, then we're not really in a relationship. We're in something where I don't feel open enough to express myself. So how do we get to the point where we're going to start all the negotiation process? Well, I'm going to kind of jump ahead, assuming that people have been talking for a while, at least a few weeks, maybe even a couple of months, are getting to know each other. They really are finding something is there. So they want to start exploring more. They want to become a little bit more intimate. So this is going to require a heightened awareness and much more sensitivity. Partners have to discuss their limits openly, what their preferences are, their expectations for each interaction. They need to be clear about what it is and what it isn't acceptable so that both people feel safe and comfortable through their interactions and no one's misunderstood. It is crucial here to establish these signals or phrases that can be used to communicate any discomfort. So we're maybe looking at safe words here to stop any interaction at any point and prioritize a lot of emotional safety and respect for each other. It's not unlike any other type of relationship. Now, how do we enhance the mutual understanding and safety here? Well, to do these, it's going to require several strategies to ensure that we go along like any other relationship in person. We need to regularly revisit and update our boundaries as the partnership evolves. I've often told people, set a check-in. Well, Chris, what's a check-in? A check-in is a time where both parties are getting together, their roles are kind of cast a little bit aside, and we're discussing what's been working, what maybe a scene has looked like, how comfortable we felt, what we'd like to change or maybe do differently. It's a time and a period where we can talk and speak freely and then move forward through that point, but doing so respectively. Pardon me. This isn't a moment that you're going to start criticizing your partner or saying anything terrible to make them feel sad or upset, because that's not going to work. Another thing you can do is use technology creatively to stimulate physical cues and feedback during play. Ensure that both of you are on the same page, that you're comfortable, that you're engaged. In a virtual setting, how do we prioritize maybe aftercare if you've agreed to it? Well, you need to make sure to ensure that emotional well-being, especially after an intimate interaction's occurred, that you're checking in with somebody, because the physical aspect of comfort is not going to be there. So you're going to have to use communication to check in on your partner to make sure that everything is flowing well enough for them. You need to educate yourself and your partner about kink practices, consent dynamics, safety protocols, and promote here informed and respectful interactions between the two of you. You don't want to tell somebody or have them do something where somebody's going to feel a bit maybe embarrassed or ashamed afterwards. Then we're kind of gotten away from the point of what we're trying to do. Now, by emphasizing all of these things, by negotiating our boundaries and setting clear goals of communication, by being respectful and understanding towards our partners, long-distance relationships can maintain a healthy and fulfilling dynamic that does honor these shared desires and boundaries and can, in essence, reflect a well-maintained and healthy practice of a BDSM dynamic. These practices here that I'm kind of giving to you do strengthen trust, but they really create this deeper connection that resonates on respect and consent and emotional intimacy and vulnerability across distance. So when it comes to these other things, then how do we deal with something like, virtual play or scenes? Well, when we're talking about engaging in kinky play virtually, this opens up a world of creative possibilities for people separated by distance. During video sessions, phone calls, sexting, these become some of the primary avenues of exploring intimacy and desires remotely. These platforms can allow partners to exchange the fantasies, enact certain scenes, and maintain a sense of connection despite the physical separation. It's going to make more difficult scenes or more complex scenes near impossible to pull off. You're obviously not going to want to do something dangerous without somebody there, but the reality is you can do some scenes at a distance. Now, how do we adapt scenes for long-distance play? Well, that's an interesting question. For a virtual medium, this does require creativity, and again, we're going to have to start talking to each other. Now, we can explore types of scenes such as domination and submission dynamics, role play, sensory deprivation. We can also use technology to stimulate physical sensations in our interactions. And we have to clearly negotiate here our rules, our limits. Obviously, we've consented to the scene beforehand to make sure that we're both understood and we're on the same page. And there's a lot of importance when it comes to being creative here. creativity is going to be the key to the successful and longevity of the long distance relationship. If you use technology creatively, it can enhance your sensory expectations. It can simulate physical touch through descriptive language, imagery. You can even incorporate props, toys that can be controlled remotely. All of these things can help bridge the gap. Now, by adapting to a virtual medium, it does allow people to explore new facets of desires that can deepen their connections through shared exploration and mutual satisfaction. Virtual kinky play and adapting scenes to the digital realm and bringing this all together through these interactions, long distance relationships can maintain very high levels of intimacy and excitement, and they can really enhance the connection, but despite the physical distance. There's nothing, I see it in regular relationships all the time where people might be going out and they have a submissive wearing a plug, or they're using something like a remote controlled toy that's inserted somehow, or maybe if it's the other way, when somebody's wearing a chastity device. All of these things can be controlled from a distance by a partner, and this really can bridge the same gap when people aren't together in a present or in-person relationship. You can do the same types of things. The feedback might be more important, but again, it's going to be about trust. It's going to be about being truthful in your interactions. And if you do that, maybe adding more description, creating more levels of detail, you're talking about certain things, really can enhance that relationship. I could even argue here that doing long distance, because you're forced only to talk, the level of the depth of your relationship is going to grow, because you're going to spend all of that time talking. You're going to have to spend all of that time being creative, right? But there are some emotional and psychological aspects here to long distance relationships, and I want to kind of jump into this point next. Now, these do bring forth a myriad of emotional challenges that deeply influence people's psychological landscapes and their relationship dynamics. Now, if I look at attachment theory, for example, this examines how individuals form and maintain our emotional bonds, and these relationships often confront partners with profound feelings of longing, loneliness, and uncertainty. And that's something you need to be aware of if you're going to enter something where maybe seeing a partner is not possible for 3, 6 months, or maybe even a year, or even a couple of years because of financial stability, or it's not possible for travel, whatever the case may be, right? You need to plan for these. These are serious discussions that you need to have. And something else we need to talk about is that intense longing and desire for that physical closeness and intimacy. This longing can amplify emotional attachment and heighten the anticipation of any type of coming together or first meeting or subsequent reunions afterwards. And this can create a sense of this longing and yearning during the periods of separation. So you can think of, if you've come together, you've finally met, but it's going to be 2 or 3 years before you can maybe live together. And that's the goal. Great. You've got a goal. You've got something in mind. You need to navigate the long distance. You're going to have to spend more time after you've come together nurturing that moments of longing and yearning. You're going to have to look at it like intense aftercare. Because for some, that loneliness and isolation is really going to peak after a meeting. People could even face bouts of anxiety, stress, or depression. And we need to understand that the physical distance inherent in these relationships leads more and facilitates a lot of isolation, particularly when people aren't able to share the physical space and experience with somebody. And this isolation may be exacerbated in the relationships where intimacy in that physical realm, normally this would play a significant role in how we do some of our interactions, but here that part is removed. This can lead us to insecurity and doubt. People might grapple with the insecurity and doubts about the strength and longevity of their relationship. They might question fidelity, their emotional availability, and the future of the connection. All of these things can arise, and all of these challenges become posed to us by that physical separation the longer it goes on. And the limitations of virtual communication, they only take us so far. So this is where the strength and core of the communication and trust are going to be paramount. If you both agree that you're never going to want anything more than a long distance relationship, you have no intention of meeting, and that's what you both agreed upon, then this might be something that's not going to be an overriding fear for either one of you. But to navigate these challenges requires people to actively engage in a lot of honest and open communication, building their emotional resilience here, and employ strategies to maintain intimacy despite the physical distance. Now, if we understand the psychological impact here of these challenges through the lens of attachment theory, this allows us to better navigate our emotions, strengthen our connection over time, and focus on the moments that we might feel we're stumbling just a little bit. By acknowledging and addressing these emotional dynamics, we can create a supportive and fulfilling dynamic that enriches that journey between the two people and grow in our kink and our intimacy. Now, there are some coping mechanisms and strategies that we can employ to help us navigate these things. Now, this will involve being proactive in our coping strategies and by being informed. We can mitigate these feelings of loneliness and maintain that emotional connection by regularly communicating our needs, our desires, and most importantly, our insecurities. Now, when two people are together, it's hard enough to talk about when we're feeling insecure. But this open dialogue fosters in a secure attachment by affirming mutual understanding and trust even when the physical presence isn't possible, and engaging in self-care practices such as mindfulness, maybe journaling, or pursuing some of our individual interests outside of our kink dynamic helps us cultivate that emotional resilience and sustains our well-being through periods of separation. Now, I want to kind of come back to aftercare. Again, everybody's going to approach aftercare differently, but in a virtual setting, I think it's going to look a little different. I think it's going to be a little bit more pivotal in a long-distance relationship versus a in-person relationship. And it's going to serve more as a pillar for emotional recovery and intimacy maintenance. Here, you're going to be able to enhance that emotional connection through virtual affirmations, reflective discussions, and symbolic acts of care for one another, especially when you do or you're following something that's been really intense. These rituals not only provide really reassurance for both of you, but support and reinforce your feelings of trust and security and satisfaction in those shared experiences. Aftercare in this virtual context does underscore the enduring significance of emotional well-being and respect, and it can make your dynamic stronger. It's going to make you feel like you're more connected and you're sharing this experience together. It's not going to feel like somehow somebody's starting to drift alone. But you have to be prepared for all of those things. And the only way you're doing that, again, is by a lot of talking. Now, building and maintaining trust, that's going to be the big part. That's going to be a lot of your work is going to be done there. Now, we know that this becomes the cornerstone of any type of relationship, vanilla or otherwise. But here, it's going to take an added significance. You're going to have to be transparent in your communications. You're going to have consistent behavior. You're going to have mutual expectations and agreements. You should be able to discuss openly your boundaries, desires, concerns, fantasies, vulnerabilities. You're going to have to ensure clarity, mutual understanding, and establish a foundation of trust. And that's only going to be nurtured through being reliable, by being honest, being accountable in both of your words and your actions, even across the distance. If you tell me you're going to be there at 5 o'clock and you're there at 5 o'clock, I'm going to start to believe you. But if 5 o'clock turns into 5:15 or 5:30, and then I start to see more and more gaps grow without any explanation, without any apologies, it's going to become more difficult to maintain and keep building trust. Now, why would vulnerability here and openness be so much more important than it would be in a present sense? That's because it's going to deepen that bond between the two of you over that distance. By being vulnerable and sharing your fears, your desires, those personal thoughts without any fear or judgment, you're allowing empathy to grow. You're allowing that understanding between the two of you to really blossom. And this cultivates this dynamic where you're exploring your desires and insecurities together. And it strengthens your emotional intimacy and strengthens that emotional bond between the two of you. But you have to prioritize trust building. It's not just something you talk about once, it's going to be ongoing in a long distance relationship. Because without it, you're not going to be consistent in your behavior. And these practices not only have faltered when you're not nurturing something like that, they tend to fall apart quite quickly if you are not consistently being truthful, living up to your expectations, or delivering on your promises. It creates too much mistrust. So I think a lot of people miscalculate their understanding of what a long distance relationship is really going to entail. It's not that they're impossible. You just have to calculate how much you're going to do. So how much do I think, which was another question, how much do I think that tools and tech are going to be involved in a long distance relationship? I think they're going to be a major avenue. I've been in a lot of long distance relationships. So emails, texts, phone calls, video conferences, sometimes just randomly doing that. All of these things served as a connection for me to maintain that connection to my partner, to let them know I was just thinking about them. It brightened her day when she got a text from me and she knew I was thinking about her. I mean, I genuinely was, but I missed her and I needed her to know that. And in return, I got something nice back, but I wasn't looking for that. It was just to let her know, hey, I'm thinking about you. That was it. Those little words made her day feel fantastic. But if we use technology to bridge the gap, what we can do is really enhance our shared experiences. Now, I want to look at some different tools here and how we can use them. First, I mentioned this before, remote controlled toys. Now, these are designed to facilitate intimate interactions from afar. Love Senses and many others have been created to really bridge that. I think more so in the realm of not just long distance, but really anywhere. But I think in a long distance setting, they really do help bridge these gaps. So we know now we have types of devices like vibrators, chastity, even bondage gear that people can control via apps or specialized remote controls. Now, if we choose a toy that offers this reliable connectivity, something that's maybe ergonomic in its design and it's got adjustable settings, it can make something more pleasurable and safe for both of you. But I would prioritize a toy that has secure Bluetooth or a Wi-Fi connectivity here, and consider something that allows customization of intensity, maybe even patterns of remote, like you can make it really different. Like you can scale up and down, like high peaks and valleys, or maybe like, a typical plateau, however you're going to do it. But that's going to suit your individual needs, right? Next, what about communication? Well, messaging apps, there's a lot of them, right? We know we've got video conferencing, like I said, Skype, we've got Zoom, FaceTime. That's just a few. Even on things like WhatsApp, I know a lot of people are against it, or Telegram. I don't know about Telegram, but I know on WhatsApp you can do face-to-face communications. All of these things maintain regular communication, right? You can even send a regular old text message. Emails are really nice. You can do things like virtual cards. You can send all these things and let people know, hey, I'm thinking about you. They provide an instant message. You're instantly there. You've got a voice chat. All of these things you can do. But you need to set time aside here for a video call or a virtual date to maintain that sense of connection. Set up a movie night. Both start a movie that you want to watch together at the same time. Sure, you're not in the same physical location, but at least you're together and you're doing it together, and it builds a memory, right? Finally, you can look at something like an online community or an online platform. I tend not to look at so much kink communities online. I typically call them platforms, especially a place like fetish.com or FetLife more so. FetLife is not, it's social media. Now, pardon me, it is a platform that you can find a community, but you could create a shared profile together and start exploring your individual interests that bring you closer together. And I did mention this before. But no matter what you do, make sure it's reputable and it's moderated to a way that you both feel comfortable and where your interactions are going to be respectful, right? And no one's guessing who's talking to who. But maybe get involved in discussions together or go to a virtual workshop together, do an event together virtually. All of these things positively help you, make you feel like you're connected to the community and each other. Another avenue you can explore is augmented reality or even virtual reality. Now, these do offer some seriously immersive experiences that stimulate physical presence and enhance sensory play in long-distance relationships. These virtual environments do allow us to explore our fantasies, engage in some role-playing, or create a personalized scene with some seriously enhanced visual and auditory feedback. Investing in VR headsets and software, though, that supports this interactive experience tailored to kink dynamics, they are available, but they're going to be pricey. Be prepared for that. Communicate what might be a better preference and boundary for you before you get involved in that, because again, if money's a thing, be prepared. Now, make sure you do, no matter how you're talking to each other or what social media platform you're going to engage on, that it's secure for the two of you, right? You want to make sure that, it's got privacy settings or content moderation or some sort of data encryption protocol. So if you want to feel that your personal information is being protected or is at least limited on what you're putting out there. All of these things are how we navigate the bigger aspect of a long distance relationship. Now, the final point here I want to bring up today is I want to talk about how do we manage our expectations in a long distance relationship. And that's really a big thing because it's got to be a balanced approach. Because it's not going to just be all fantasy and all submission and domination. But we have to have a lot of practicality here that emphasizes the importance of managing our expectations effectively. Now, here I want to kind of go through a couple of points. First, we need to set realistic expectations. Now, that's crucial here because what that does is it allows us to avoid disappointment and it maintains our emotional well-being. We need to be able to discuss what we want, our thoughts, our boundaries, our desires, our limitations, what we're negotiating, all of these things. And this way, we both understand what's feasible and sustainable given the distance. And this promotes clarity and it puts us in an alignment of our expectations. And it does make the relationship build and gain more momentum towards trust and shared goals. Next, we have to navigate the balance between fantasy and reality. Fantasy here is going to be, we do understand, plays the biggest role inside of kink. And this fuels our excitement and our exploration, but it is essential to balance it with the realities of physical separation and even logistical challenges. We can embrace the fantasy side as a creative outlet while grounding our interactions in practical communication. But we have to make sure that we're exploring all of our desires authentically and respecting each other. And we're not, great, I want to pretend in a role play scene or a sensory deprivation scene to do X, Y, and Z, but maybe Z is not possible. It's not real, right? And I don't push your partner into doing something that they may not be able to do. That's just not real. Now, here comes the next part, and this may not be because not everybody is interested in getting together, but I want to put this part in here. Plan an in-person visit at some point. And I think this is an invaluable opportunity here to not only deepen your connection and your physical intimacy in the relationship, but when you're planning visits, it allows people to anticipate and prepare for the next interaction, to go beyond the screen. And if your goal maybe someday, even if it's 5 years down the line, that's the track you're looking at, because maybe let's say it's a work thing or a logistics thing or whatever the case may be, you're under contract to work in a different part of the country for 2 years. This allows you to make a lot of plans and bridge that next gap in between your visits. So what plan it out, talk about it. It gives you not only the chance to validate the relationships in person, but it does reinforce that bond between the two of you. I know for some you're never going to maybe want to get together, and that's fine. But then you're going to have to deal with prolonged, times of maybe non-communication. And everybody's like, oh, well, they can always text me. Well, I know plenty of people that work sometimes 60, 80, 90 hours a week. And the last thing they're going to want to do after they've been online all day or they've been working all day is pick up a phone, because they're tired and they're mentally drained. And you need to be prepared for that. And sometimes that's an expectation we need to understand. We always say, oh, that's okay, I'm going to understand when it happens. Well, sometimes we're not ready. And that's a great point. When you check in, you can talk about these things. You can say, hey, I know a couple of weeks ago, you were out of town. You had to fly to Toronto on business, and we got to talk, one day out of the 5 days you were gone, but I was really struggling. Well, you're going to have to negotiate that, because I've never prioritized myself over my partner's job or their education or their family, right? Or even their health. All of these things take priority over me. So you have to be prepared for that. But sometimes I think we have to sit and understand what's real and what's not when it comes to something like long distance. Now, it is clear that these dynamics do offer both challenges and opportunities, unlike a traditional relationship. And beyond the physical separation lies an area where emotional and psychological intimacy can really flourish. And it's going to be driven by your innovative communication and mental exploration between the two of you. But this journey does involve more than just navigating a logistic hurdle here, but by being vulnerable, by being open, and being creative. You have to continuously adapt, the two of you, through the use of technology, not just as a tool though, but as a conduit for your experiences and your intimate explorations. And if you understand all of this, you're going to understand what's pivotal. And there are a lot of people that do make it work. If you understand how the longing and the loneliness and the need for reassurance are going to be common, then you're going to be able to make your relationship work. And if you can address these emotions when they arise, you're going to be able to navigate the problems that come along with them. If you support each other, all of these things will help you be anchored and create strategies that promote your emotional resilience and your fulfillment. And as you look forward and the evolution of technology continues to shape how we connect and explore our lives as people, all of these things become more immersive, and the possibilities for enhancing this intimacy across a distance are going to expand exponentially here. And we need to understand that, technology is actually can help and simultaneously hinder people's relationships. So don't just be rooted in that. Find other things you can do, right? All of these things are going to be the challenges you're going to experience in a long distance relationship. But ultimately, you're going to have courage. You're going to have to be adaptable and have the willingness to push boundaries beyond the normal convention that we're used to, both personally and technologically. And we have to embrace this journey of discovery. And we have to be able to support each other in our moments of highs and our lows. I really hope that you kind of got something out of this. This was a little bit longer, and I didn't really realize how big the thoughts were and some of the things I wanted to talk about. And there's really a lot more to this, but I'd like to hear thoughts from the community. If you've ever been in a long-distance relationship, how did you navigate it? Is it still going on? What was maybe your longest one? Why did that end? You know, it's a really important question I'd kind of like to know, because I think there's a lot of other people that are going to be navigating this subject, and they'd like to hear about it, get some feedback on it, right? That's number one. Number two, if this is the first time you're listening to me, please like, subscribe, consider following me on a place like Spotify or wherever you do. Please rate me 5 stars. That allows me to keep the show going for free. It was a great thing today. Somebody asked me, oh, well, how do I do that? I hear you, Chris, I hear you ask us all the time, how do we do it? Well, I have an Android. If you go to your Spotify app, you're going to see right under the show's name, you're going to see my star rating. I don't know, it's like 46. For some reason, people keep downgrading me. I don't know why. If you don't like me, just kind of move on. But they said, how do I rate you? Well, on Spotify on Android, there's 3 little dots. You press that, and underneath there, it'll say rate the show. And I just ask you to rate it 5 stars. It's how I've kept my show for free for all of these years. But I do have now a donation link. The show takes me time. It takes me money to keep this going, to do the research and bring this all to you for nothing. If you'd like to donate to the show, big or small, please click the donation link in my description. Big or small, it's always helpful and it's always welcome. I do appreciate it. Okay? If you want to, great. If not, not a big deal. I do have a book for sale. It's about the lifestyle. It's called Tangled Desires, the intersection between BDSM and psychology, or psychology and BDSM. It's available wherever you get your ebooks, or there is a print version available for you. Yes, to confirm one last time, I'm not going to mention this anymore. My other podcast right now is suspended. I don't have the time, and I don't have the investment to make that continuously keep going. It just takes too much for me to do. But, maybe one day in the future, I'll take up true crime and BDSM once again. Who knows? But let me know what you think about the show today. I'm really curious to hear back from those in the community who've done LDRs or are currently in one, and how you navigated it, right? Let's talk about this thing and talk about some of the problems and how you even faced them. I'd like to hear from you all. Until next time, everybody, be safe and stay kinky.